Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. I'm very excited about this week's passage. We're in Exodus 6 verses 6 through 8, and this is the content of what God tells Moses to tell the Israelites, and it is absolutely beautiful. As I read from my own translation, I want you to listen for 7 I will statements that God makes through Moses to the Israelites. And notice that these 7 statements are bracketed by Yahweh's self-declaration. I am Yahweh, I am Yahweh. So let's listen for the 7. Therefore say to the Israelites, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burden bearing of Egypt. I will deliver you from their forced servitude. I will redeem you with outstretched arm and with great acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your own God. You will know that I am Yahweh your God, the one who brought you out from under the burden bearing of Egypt. I will bring you into the land that I lifted my hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am Yahweh. Did you hear that? I am Yahweh on either end, and then 7 self-declarations. So beautiful. I want to focus on just a few things in these 7 statements that are worth making a comment about. First of all is the word redeem. When God says, I will redeem you with outstretched arm and with great acts of judgment. We actually have several things to talk about in that line. The word redeem is the Hebrew word ga'al, and it's a legal term relating to family law in Israel. And the idea is that a close relative rescues someone who's fallen on hard times by either buying them out of slavery or buying back the land that they have lost. And so that person, you may remember in the story of Ruth, that Boaz serves as a goel. That's what he's doing is he's ga'aling Naomi and Ruth. And here Yahweh is the one who is ga'aling the Israelites, which means he is the close relative who is putting himself out there to buy them back. Now remember back in chapter 4 when Zipporah circumcises their son, and she says to Yahweh, you are a blood relative. So she declared in chapter 4 verse 25 that Yahweh is a blood relative. She acknowledged that, and now God is making good on that status by redeeming his people out of Egypt. He doesn't have to pay Pharaoh because Pharaoh has exploited them far longer than was allowable in terms of debt slavery. But anyway, that word redeem evokes this whole context. He says he's going to redeem them with outstretched arm. This is the first time we see the phrase outstretched arm in the Bible, but it becomes the standard way to refer to the deliverance from Egypt. Throughout the Bible, when authors are reflecting back on this moment in history, they're talking about how God redeemed them with an outstretched arm. This is fascinating because Pharaoh's favorite pose in the royal inscriptions and the stone reliefs in temples and palaces, Pharaoh's favorite way to be pictured was what's called the mace pose, where he's holding a strong arm over his head, holding a mace, ready to clobber somebody, and then the other arm is stretched out, grabbing one of his subordinates by the scruff of their hair, and he's getting ready to bash them. That mace pose was a standard way of depicting Pharaoh for 3,000 years. It's Pharaoh's way of saying, I'm the king of the hill. I have military might. I have authority. And now God is using the same language, a verbal form of that picture to depict his own conquering of Pharaoh. In fact, from the 16th to the 12th centuries BC, the phrase strong of arm is very common in Egyptian writings to refer to Pharaoh. He is described as being strong of arm. So when Yahweh says, I will redeem you with outstretched arm, he is beating Pharaoh at his own game. Isn't that fun? And then it says, and with great acts of judgment. I just wanted to comment on the word judgment because in English that word is primarily negative, like you're judging, to judge someone is to find them guilty. But the word judgment in Hebrew has a broader sense of just a decision regarding the rightness or wrongness of an action. So you might judge someone to be righteous as much as you could judge them to be wicked. And in this case, God is going to render judgment on Pharaoh's rulership of the Israelites and going to find him guilty. After 5 of the I will statements, we have what's called the recognition formula. You will know that I am Yahweh, the one who brought you out. And that's a refrain throughout the book of Exodus. But right before that, we have the covenant formula. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your own God. This is just a beautiful expression of reciprocal loyalty, like a marriage covenant or an adoption contract. It's saying we now are going to belong exclusively to one another. Isn't that great? And the last comment I have to make on these verses, so much more we could say, but the clock is ticking, is in verse 8 when God says, I will bring you to the land that I lifted my hand to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This expression, lifted the hand, is here an idiom or figure of speech for swearing. In other words, God lifted his hand to promise to give the land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's interesting to contrast this with the way Pharaoh uses his hand in relation to the Israelites, because Pharaoh lifts his hand to strike them. They have a fundamentally different use of authority. God wants to bless his people while Pharaoh wants to exploit them. So I hope that you spend some time just sitting with these 7 statements of God's commitment to Israel, and just imagine yourself in the shoes or the sandals of the ancient Israelites, hearing these beautiful promises and seeing that this rescue from Egypt is not just a moment in time of making something right, but that Israel is entering into a long-term committed relationship with Yahweh, who considers himself to be a close relative who is redeeming them from slavery. Isn't that great? All right, I hope you have a great week. Enjoy the Torah.